Behind Marilyn Monroe's bright smile and legendary beauty were hidden the tragic and terrifying events of her childhood. The hard days in foster homes, the physical and emotional abuse she suffered, shaped both her personality and her destiny. How did these painful trials turn an ordinary girl into a world-renowned star? And why is her death considered one of the most mysterious in the world? After this video, you will not only witness a mysterious death but also strengthen the vulnerable person inside you. I truly believe this video will give you motivation. So, turn on the universe mode in your mind, because in the universe nothing will disturb you while watching this video. Marilyn Monroe, whose real name was Norma Jean Mortensen, later had her last name changed to Baker when her mother took her own family name. She was born on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles, California. From her very first days, her life began with difficulties and hardships. When Marilyn was only 2 months old, her father abandoned her. Her mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, struggled with mental health problems and could not give her daughter enough love. Norma Jean always waited for her father to return, and as a child she would even imagine his face in other men. This deep sense of absence affected her entire life. As her mother's mental state worsened day by day, she had to be placed in a psychiatric hospital. Even when she was discharged, she had no strength to raise her daughter. On top of that, her severe depression and declining mental health once even pushed her to attempt suicide. In the 1920s and 1930s, there was a practice in the United States where children from poor families were temporarily given to other families for foster care. These foster families received money for each child they took in. Marilyn Monroe also had to live in such families. Sometimes she stayed in orphanages, and sometimes she was moved between different foster homes. This constant change of families, her mother's suicide attempts, and the harsh life in orphanages left a deep scar on the sensitive girl. She began to feel abandoned, unwanted, and completely alone. Her misfortunes did not end there. After the orphanage, her mother's close friend took her in. From that point, Norma's life seemed to change. She had new clothes, she was taken to the movies, and she began to experience moments of fun and happiness. In short, she finally lived like a joyful child. But suddenly, this happiness also came to an end. Her mother's friend, Grace Atkinson, married Irvin Goddard for the second time. Sometimes he came home very drunk, unable to control himself. One day, Grace caught him trying to molest 11-year-old Norma. Instead of feeling pity for the girl, she looked at Marilyn with disgust and blamed her, thinking it was her fault because she was such a pretty little girl. Grace then decided Marilyn could no longer stay in that household and sent her to her aunt, Ida Martinique. After that, she had to change families 2 more times. As a young girl, Norma Jean was very modest and had little self-confidence. But the natural beauty she was born with always attracted people's attention. Strangers would often compliment her hair and her radiant smile. Norma's biggest passion was cinema. She tried never to miss a single movie premiere. She would spend every penny she got on movie tickets. And despite all her hardships, she kept one dream alive in her heart: to become an actress. During these struggles, her stutter, which she was born with, grew worse. Yes, she was naturally a stutterer, and stress made it more severe. Later, she worked very hard on this speech disorder for the sake of her acting career. After 3 years of effort, she finally overcame it. At the age of 16, Norma Jean was forced to marry. Her last foster family was moving away and they did not want to take her with them. Marilyn agreed, as this decision seemed the only way to gain independence and escape the orphanage system. She married 20-year-old James Dougherty, a funeral assistant. For a short time, the marriage gave her a sense of peace and safety. Dougherty's family lived in poverty, barely surviving in a small shack. To earn money and seek adventure, Jim enlisted as a merchant marine and soon went away to sea. Left behind, Norma decided to work at an aircraft factory until her husband's return. The factory was close to her home, and although she had no experience, she quickly began working there. She helped assemble aviation parts and took pride in contributing to the national war effort. In 1944, during World War II, many men were at the front, and women were mobilized to work in factories. Norma was one of them. One day, famous war photographer David Conover visited the factory. He had been assigned to capture images of ordinary workers for a campaign promoting America's war efforts. When Conover saw Norma Jean, he was struck by her natural beauty. In front of the camera, she was calm, radiant, and incredibly photogenic. Her pictures stood out from all the others and revealed her as a true natural star. When the photographs were published, they gained nationwide recognition. Norma Jean became a symbol of inspiration for American soldiers. Her images boosted morale among troops and gave them strength during wartime. Soon afterward, she was offered a contract as a model. A completely new life began for her. Almost overnight, she became a sought-after model, appearing in magazines and advertisements. During these years, she refined her appearance and her behavior. Her shyness and lack of confidence gradually gave way to professionalism and self-assurance. When asked by journalists about her future, Marilyn once boldly declared, "I am still nobody, but one day that will change. And when it does, I won't lose my composure." This reflected her unshakable belief in her destiny. Soon she transitioned from small advertisements to the doors of major film studios. After signing a contract with 20th Century Fox, Norma Jean became known to the world as Marilyn Monroe. Her fame grew rapidly, and she starred in major films such as Niagara, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and Some Like It Hot. She wasn't only admired for her beauty, her talent as an actress shone through, making her one of the most sought-after stars of her era. Her smile, her voice, and her unique charm made her unforgettable. To the world, Marilyn Monroe was a dazzling star. But her private life told a very different story. She constantly searched for love and stability, yet her relationships often ended in heartbreak. Although she reached the very peak of fame, as a person she often felt lonely and lost. Marilyn's 3 marriages were each painful in their own way. Her first husband, Jim Doherty, offered security, but her drive toward stardom eventually pulled them apart. Her second husband, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, clashed with her fame. He longed for privacy, while she was constantly in the public eye. Her third marriage, to playwright Arthur Miller, was based on intellectual connection, but it too eventually collapsed. Marilyn also suffered several miscarriages due to her fragile health, leaving her unable to have children. This added to the deep sadness in her personal life. Her struggles extended beyond relationships. Marilyn battled the traumas of her childhood, the pressures of stardom, and her own inner vulnerabilities. Her mood swung dramatically. At times she was full of joy and energy, at other times she sank into deep depression. She often sought psychological help, but stability remained elusive. The intense demands of her career took a toll on her emotional and physical well-being. To cope with sleeplessness, anxiety, and exhaustion, she turned to medications. Over time, she grew dependent on them, which only worsened her problems. She was always searching for inner strength, but it wasn't always easy to find. Her mental health struggles also affected her professional life. On film sets, she was sometimes late, anxious, or insecure, which caused tension with directors and colleagues. Yet her undeniable talent and magnetic presence made her worth the effort. Despite the chaos, Marilyn's brilliance continued to shine through. When I was reading through the information, I came across something interesting. What really made her so famous? She wasn't extraordinarily beautiful to the point of deserving that level of fame. In fact, many believed it was simply the clothes she wore that made her look so stunning. This was a topic of discussion both back then and even now. But there's one thing, she had the ideal look for her time. Let me give you an example. In 1951, a journalist said her fame was nothing more than beautiful clothes. In response, Marilyn Monroe posed for photos wearing nothing but a simple potato sack fitted to her body. And surprisingly, the photos turned out even more beautiful than before, making her even more famous. This showed that Monroe attracted people not only because of her outfits, but also because of her confidence and charisma. Another thing that silenced those who thought Marilyn was only about looks was her intelligence and love for books. Her personal library had more than 400 books, many of them on philosophy, poetry, and history. She loved reading works by Fyodor Dostoevsky, George Bernard Shaw, and Ernest Hemingway. So, I've explained to you about Marilyn Monroe and what she went through. Now let's move on to the main part of the video, the mysterious death of Marilyn Monroe. In the summer of 1962, Marilyn was supposed to star in a comedy. But she stopped showing up for filming, and on June 8, her contract was cancelled. According to her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, on the evening of August 4, Marilyn complained about being tired, took her phone, and went to her bedroom unusually early. Later, many of her acquaintances claimed they spoke with her on the phone during her final hours. For instance, Peter Lawford, the husband of President John Kennedy's sister Patricia, said Marilyn told him something chilling: "Say goodbye to Pat Kennedy and the president for me. You're a fine guy." After midnight, Eunice became worried when she noticed lights still shining under Marilyn's door. She went outside, looked through the bedroom window, and saw Marilyn lying motionless on her bed. Murray immediately called Marilyn's psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, and her personal physician, Dr. Hyman Engelberg. Greenson arrived first, entered the room, and discovered Marilyn's body. She was clutching a telephone in her hand, with an empty bottle of sleeping pills beside the bed. On the table were more empty medicine bottles, a total of 14. However, there was no suicide note in the room. Soon after, Dr. Engelberg arrived and officially confirmed her death. The body was sent to the morgue, where pathologist Dr. Thomas Noguchi performed the autopsy. He concluded that the cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning due to oral overdose. Thus, on the morning of August 5, 1962, 36-year-old Marilyn Monroe was pronounced dead at her Los Angeles home. News of her death shocked the entire world. Police initially ruled it a suicide, but over the years, countless rumors, mysteries, and conspiracy theories have surrounded the case. The press covered her death widely. Tragically, many Americans were so influenced by the news that they decided to follow her example, using pills to end their own lives. We often see in life that only after someone dies do people begin to truly value them and recognize their good qualities. Marilyn Monroe was already incredibly famous, but her mysterious death made her an even bigger legend. Still, many people refused to believe she had taken her own life. Why? For example, some rumors blamed her psychiatrist, Ralph Greenson, saying he had instructed Marilyn to take chloral hydrate after sleeping pills. That drug combination can be extremely dangerous, because it depresses breathing and can be fatal. Some believe this led Marilyn into a state of depression that pushed her towards suicide. Others even suggested she died not from pills, but from a drug overdose. But one of the strongest theories is that Marilyn Monroe was killed on the orders of John and Robert Kennedy. Rumors swirled that she had romantic relationships with both brothers while she was alive. In Donovan Joyce's book, The Murder of Marilyn Monroe, Case Closed, it is argued that her death was not an accident or suicide, but outright murder. According to this theory, Marilyn may have known political or personal secrets that could have seriously damaged the Kennedy family. Some even claimed she kept a special red diary where she recorded her meetings, conversations, and sensitive information. It's been suggested that the notes in that diary could have sparked major political scandals. After Marilyn's death, her house was searched, and there's suspicion that her personal belongings, including the so-called red diary, may have been stolen. Some witnesses claimed that the diary was taken either by Robert Kennedy or by other political forces. Certain theories suggest that Robert Kennedy was directly or indirectly involved in Marilyn's death. According to some witnesses, he was in Los Angeles on the day she died and even met with her. The theory about the Kennedys gained more weight in 2015. In April of that year, Norman Hodges, a 78-year-old former CIA officer, made a deathbed confession in a Virginia hospital, and it caused a real sensation. According to Hodges, between 1959 and 1972, he carried out 37 assassinations on orders from his organization, targeting people considered threats to U.S. security. Among those, he claimed, was Marilyn Monroe. He said Monroe's close ties to the Kennedy brothers and her connections with Fidel Castro gave her access to sensitive information. Hodges claimed she was ordered to be eliminated because she might pass those secrets to the Soviet Union or others. He stated that Monroe was the only woman targeted by the agency, all the others were foreign individuals seen as national security threats. His confession strengthened the theory that her death was politically motivated. According to Hodges, his commander, Jimmy Hayworth, ordered Monroe's death to be staged as natural. So how was it carried out? Hodges claimed that he and a colleague secretly entered her bedroom. They injected Marilyn Monroe with a lethal dose, a mixture of chloral hydrate and Nembutal. The injection took effect quickly, slowing her breathing until it eventually caused her death. At the time, Monroe was asleep and unaware. Since she was in deep rest, her body showed no reaction and she never felt the change taking place. Why didn't she notice the injection? Hodges explained that it was done carefully and precisely. Because of that, she didn't feel pain, and the drugs took over without her realizing it. Her death appeared calm, with no struggle, making it look like a natural or accidental overdose. This method could have made the murder appear peaceful, because injected drugs act fast and leave fewer outward signs. Official medical reports later showed extremely high levels of Nembutal and chloral hydrate in Marilyn's body, though the conclusion was that she had taken them orally in pill form. Hodges's confession directly contradicts that, insisting the drugs were injected, not swallowed. It said Hodges revealed this at the very end of his life, in a nursing home, as an act of conscience, which raises the possibility he was telling the truth. Marilyn's housekeeper, Eunice Murray, also testified that before her death Marilyn spent hours on the phone with various people. Murray recalled noticing that her bedroom light was still on late into the night and that the phone line was active. Some researchers argue that this points to something unnatural in her death. When Murray finally checked the room, she found Marilyn lying in bed. But she saw no major injuries or alarming signs, so she didn't call the police immediately. The FBI and CIA never released any clear information. Officially, the case was ruled a suicide and closed. Normally, with the death of a major public figure, agencies like the FBI or local police conduct thorough investigations and release findings to the public. But in Marilyn's case, there was no large, transparent inquiry. Instead, her death was surrounded by secrecy, closed investigations, and hidden information, which only fueled conspiracy theories about what really happened. Now, let's break down and analyze this theory. Before the intelligence agents secretly entered Marilyn's home, everything had already been arranged with her housekeeper. Her job was to give Marilyn a sleeping pill and then call them once she had fallen asleep. Marilyn drifted off under the effect of the drug, and the agents came in. Because she was heavily sedated, she slept deeply and noticed nothing. They carried out their mission, left the room, and then the housekeeper called the doctors. Those doctors, who also seemed to be part of the plan, reported that drugs were found in her system. Since the investigation was closed off and controlled, no real evidence ever surfaced. Her death was officially declared a suicide. But in the end, this remains just a theory. So, what do you think? Leave a comment. Do you believe it was really suicide or an assassination? For now, goodbye.